Well, hello everyone and welcome. I'm glad that you've tuned in today. And today we are wanting to address the issue of homelessness in our city. And I have three friends that have joined me that are very much involved in serving this homeless community. And I'm going to ask them to introduce each other to us, and then we're going to get into how we can be a help to those who are on the streets and those who are ministering to people who are homeless. So why don't we start with you, Sarah? Just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Hi there, I'm Sarah Campbell. I'm the executive director of Arcade Street Mission, and I'm really pleased to be here. I'm also a member of the board of CCNL, and so just pleased to be sharing with the churches and with anyone who's listening to this about what's going on in London, Ontario with my colleagues here. Thank you.
Great. Go ahead, John.
Hi, I'm John Deactis. Glad to be here as well with my colleagues. I'm the Executive Director at the Center of Hope. I have been involved with CCNL, attending meetings and so on. Has been a while since I've been there, but had done in the past. And I pastored, youth pastor at a church prior to coming here, and part of my career has been youth pastoring. I was at Westview Baptist for many years before I resigned just before COVID. But Executive Director here at the Center, and glad to join in on this.
Great. And you, Ericka.
Hello, my name is Ericka Ayala Ronson. I am Executive Director at Mission Services of London. I have been at Mission Services since 2012 in a prior role as Director of Development and Communications and Executive Director since October of 2022. And I have had the pleasure of attending different events with CCNL, and I'm happy to be here.
Great. Great to have all of you. And just want to say how much we appreciate the work that you are doing. But what we want to hear today from your perspective is what is happening in our city with regards to homelessness. Can you just give us a bit of a insight from your perspective where we're at it in our city?
Sure.
Good question.
I'm sure we could all have a bit of perspective on this. And, I think we would probably all agree that the issue has become more visible to Londoners, that the issue of homelessness is affecting people at every level. So there's sort of like the chronic homelessness that you see where people have been maybe homeless many times or have had a repeat experience of homelessness, but then there's a lot of people who are falling into homelessness with new experiences with the rising cost of living and immigration and people moving across our country between communities. And then also, just overall, I think we would all agree that the numbers as a whole are higher than they have been in the past. Others?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's become very political, the whole thing of homelessness. People ask me all the time about the crisis that we're in, and I think we are in a crisis, but I think the bigger crisis is housing. And we're in an incredible place where all our shelters are full constantly, 100%, even more. They talk about affordable housing, and I'm not even sure what that means anymore. The folks that we service and work with, there's no such thing to them as affordable housing. There's not places in London that they can afford to rent. So I think that tells you a bit more about the crisis itself. But I think, I've been in the city of London my whole career, and I think the one thing that I think Sarah spoke to as well, and I'm sure Ericka will agree, is that for the first time in my career in 45 some odd years, the community is working together. And that's exciting that for the first time, I'm seeing the whole community get right down to the hard work and working with one another and not siloed and doing our own thing. To me, that's exciting. And I think we're seeing some progress because of that. There's not a specific solution to this. I tell people, if you want to know what the solution to homelessness is, take a look in the mirror because you're part of the solution.
And I'm kind of wondering, like, what is the city's, when I talk about city, I mean the people of London.
Hmm.
What is their attitude towards homelessness? What are you encountering from people? Ericka, can you address that?
Yes, it spans the gamut. When John speaks about if you want to know the solution to homelessness, and I'm not sure that there's any simple solution, but I do agree with John's statement of looking in the mirror, looking at ourselves, and it's about the individual and what we each can do. In that regard, it is also an individual response. And so, again, looking at ourselves in the mirror to say, how will I react today? How will I act when I encounter individuals who are struggling? Will I look them in the eye, if that makes sense, and say good morning? For some, that may not be welcome. So it's really just learning that we're interacting with each other as human beings, not as labels. So that is powerful and can go a long way. We do see stigmatization still of the folks that we serve, of the vulnerabilities, multiple vulnerabilities that they may present with still, and that is something that we all try to push back on and to have disappear. And at the same time, we are seeing great inroads and we're seeing more political will. We are seeing a shifting attitude as well in the community to say we collectively must do something. And that is so exciting for those of us who are in the sector. We're encouraged by that because for many, many years, we have been doing this and feeling a little bit alone. But now there's more of a feeling of community and a feeling of collaboration and understanding that we each bring something to the table here as organizations and yes, as individuals.
Tell me a little bit about what your individual organizations are bringing to the table. Maybe some of the folks that are watching this really aren't aware. So, so John, tell us a
Mm,
little bit about what you guys are offering in this
yeah,
regard.
sure. It's a great question. Every single night at the Center of Hope, we have 252 people stay in our building that are homeless. Some of that is program specific. We have transition rooms, which are individual rooms, they're private rooms. We have a program here called the Recovery Community Center. We know from past history that if these folks didn't have a place to be and they're struggling with addiction, mental health, they'd probably be on the streets. And so that's a bit of a stopgap programming for people. We offer a housing stability bank here, which means that people who are struggling with paying a month's rent or some utilities, they can come and get a grant or a loan for some funds to help them through that month so they don't end up homeless. And we've done some initiatives over the few years, even with COVID. We press forward in a lot of things that we do. We now have the King's College here, their social work program, and they do counseling, and they counsel even those who aren't registered into any of our programs. They offer counseling to help people with their mental health, to get them to a place where they can settle and deal with some of the issues from their past, some of the trauma, and hopefully make it a better and easier way for them if they get housing, that they are going into it with a very different mindset. So we have a variety of things that we do here, but I think the biggest thing for us is truly that we have 252 people here every single night, and there's never an empty bed. We are full all the time. And the worst part of all that is we continue to turn away at least 100 people a month. And that's average between 100 to 300 people that we turn away because we don't have enough room.
My goodness. Sarah, talk to us a little bit about the ARC and what you're offering over there.
Sure. Well, many people will know the Ark as a soup kitchen. And, certainly historically, it's our 40th anniversary. That was what the Ark was primarily doing in the city of London. Over the last number of years during COVID, we've stepped into doing some sheltering, some emergency services, a lot of outreach, working with the encampment solutions, and our meal program, of course, continues. We're serving at about 1,300 service interactions a day from Arcade Street Mission. We have 90 resting spaces throughout the night and about 200 people rotating through our drop-in space throughout the day. it really is a basic needs response. It is that emergency first point of contact, welcoming people inside, getting those most basic of needs, water, food, clothing, a shower, laundry, those types of things. And then alongside that, we have some chaplaincy services, some advocacy, helping people connect to these long-standing services that have done so well in our community to help people stabilize. And we've joined them in some of that stabilizing work through what historically has been winter response, these beds for winter, which are becoming now part of a broader system approach to just adding space because of the huge amount of demand in our community. Much like John, we're turning away anywhere between 30 and 40 people a night for space. It's heartbreaking. I know we refer to each other on this call. Our organizations do, our staff do, and it's difficult because there just simply is no room in the inn, and so that's a big challenge. And really to keep hope alive for people that they can become housed, that there is a next step, is also the challenge. That housing struggle is so real. So that's what the ARC is doing right now in the City of London.
Great, thank you. And mission services, Ericka, what are you guys up to?
Well, we are celebrating our 73rd anniversary in London, by London, for London, strictly local Christian faith-based organization. And over those 73 years, we have evolved to fill a number of gaps. We like to say that we meet need at the point of need, and that's really what we're doing today. We have a variety of programs, and I encourage everyone to visit our website, missionservices.ca, to learn more, but I'll do my best in as a summary here. We have our Men's Mission, which is likely our best known program in the City of London. It is an emergency shelter for men, where men receive a place to sleep, safe place to sleep, but also meals. And also it is a housing focused shelter. We do have housing plans, and we help people achieve their self-identified goals, and particularly housing. Within the Men's Mission, we have 76 emergency shelter beds. We also have 4 overflow beds when those 76 are full, and I can tell you pretty much every night they're full. The story is similar to what my colleagues have said. We unfortunately do turn people away sometimes as well, and it is heartbreaking. In addition to the 76 plus 4, we do have 35 transitional housing units in what we call our Roger Smith wing. Roger Smith was one of our former executive directors who came through his own experience of homelessness and addiction and rehabilitated and went on to become an executive director. So the wing is named after him, and it is to help people who might not be ready to go into a mark and rent unit yet, or still connecting with education, job skills, retraining, etc., but they are ready to exit strictly emergency shelter. In addition to that, we have Rotham Family Shelter. It is unique within about an hour and a half radius of London, in that it is not a violence against women shelter, and it serves men, women, and children, single parent led, 2-parent led, sometimes older sibling custody of younger siblings. It's really about adult with dependents, and it does not have any particular age focus in terms of the age of the head of the household. We have shelter diversion programming through Rotham. So we're helping families to hopefully avoid even having to come into shelter through our shelter diversion and housing stability workers, seeking to prevent them from re-entering and seeking to help them find appropriate housing. We also have community mental health programs, which are serving folks who need an outreach-based support. They may be experiencing not only homelessness, but also a mental illness and or an addiction, frequently all 3. So this team, it goes out to them and seeks to help them with not only their basic needs, but also navigating the system, getting medical help, etc. Quentin Warner House is an addiction treatment for men. It has 20 addiction treatment beds. It is a 4-month live-in program, and it is meant to serve those who have experienced chronic addiction and are seeking to break free from that addiction. We also have chaplaincy available throughout our programs. It is something that folks engage with on a voluntary basis. Our chaplain is trauma informed and well used and well equipped to um, serve the vulnerable populations that we deal with. Last but not least, we also have a social enterprise arm, the Mission Store, which functions as a thrift store, and the proceeds are designed to go into funding the other programs as well as covering its own costs. But what's very special about it is that it also has an emergency voucher program. It gives away clothing and household items at no cost to people who cannot afford them.
Great. So a lot of great things going on through your agencies. And again, we appreciate what you folk are doing. Uh, just as we kind of wrap up in this last segment, I just want us to talk a little bit about how can the local church and the Christian community of London support you guys, come alongside and support what you're doing. Yeah, can you talk to me a little bit about that? What are churches and Christians doing, and what do we need to be doing more to support you? John, you want to start?
Sure, I can start. I think there's a couple things for me. Of course, donations to our organizations are so helpful, and it's harder today than it ever has been getting donations just because there's so many people looking for donations. But I think, I think I speak for all three of us that any donations we get go directly to client care and go directly to helping the folks that we serve. And I think that's a big one. Something that I just started saying in the past little while is invite us to come speak at your church. Let us have firsthand opportunities to share with your church just what's going on in here, because I really don't think the churches are that aware of what's going on. What they read in the paper is very different, I think, than what we are dealing with every day on the front lines, and what we're dealing with within the community and how we're working together as a community. The last thing I'll say, so that my colleagues can speak, is my wife and I led a university class, Bible study at our place, and we used a book called Crazy Love with Francis Chan. We spent a whole year just studying one verse, and it was love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind. We all know that verse so well. And I think as a church today, we just need to have a different filter when we talk about homelessness, and that we need to see those who are struggling on the street, whatever the behaviors are, whatever's going on, the mental health, the addiction, the homelessness, as these are our neighbors. And I think if we look at these folks with the lens that these are our neighbors, we look at it with a very different heart. And I think that's where I think the churches shine, when we can use the heart that of love that Jesus has for us, and that we can love because he loved us. And I think if we look at people in the community that are on the streets who are begging at the corners, and not looking at them with disdain, but looking at them as, this is my brother and sister, and I need to love them as much as anything. And people say, yeah, I'll give you $1, or people won't because they're afraid of what they'll use the money for. And I always encourage people to maybe pull over and take them for lunch, maybe buy them something and spend a bit of time with them and just kind of talk to them about their story. So I think, change the lens, look at them as our neighbor, and I think we'll all come at this with a different heart within the churches.
Well said. Well said. Ericka, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, prayer. Please hold us up in prayer. Prayer is mighty. Prayer is powerful. We know that from scripture. And we do covet your prayers, because there are always times, I think my colleagues wouldn't mind me saying this, where as leaders, as people who work in the field, direct care workers, etc., we might stand there and go, Lord, where to? Now what? Or what do we do? And the Lord provides a way. We might, look at things from a human finite perspective. The Lord is not finite. He is an infinite being, and he sees us through. So please carry us in prayer. And also pray about yourself, if I dare to give that advice unsolicited, perhaps. But ask, what is God calling you as an individual to do? How are you going to bring your gifts and the things and the talents that the Lord has entrusted you with to use, to help your neighbor, and to help the people that that he sees and that he has created.
Amen. Amen. And Sarah?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll only add one part to this. I think everyone our organization, like the others, would be looking for similar, donation of time, donation of money, volunteerism, join us in the work. And I would just encourage people within the church that, um, the Bible talks about, giving to the least of these and giving a cup of water in Jesus'
Yeah.
name. And that's actually the sharing of the gospel when we are doing those things. And I would encourage you to find a way to be a part of, whether it's handing the dollar on the street, taking someone for lunch, as John talked about, and in prayer, reflecting on the way that God's calling you into your own work with human beings. It really comes down to each one of us being changed as we give. That's what the call is that as we give sacrificially, as we be part of the church, in fact, be the church to one another, be a community. This is actually one of the most protective factors for people falling into homelessness. There are people on the pews in each of the churches that exist in London that are just one paycheck away, or one meal from being able to provide for their children, or one step. And it is in community where we see each other and really recognize those risk factors that we can make a difference on that individual basis. Then there's the system basis. And I think it's so very important for us to realize that the church was the social service of the history. The church was the place that people turned to. And as we think about how do we revive our churches, I would just encourage us to think about how we show up to meet these needs together. And at this point, that might be through organizations like ours that hold hand in hand with our church partners to deliver these really life transformative services to people. And so I would encourage folks to come be a part of it, volunteer with us. I know at the ARC we've got dinner teams, and volunteerism is a big part of what we do. But it's also, cleaning out your closet with your teenagers and saying, let's donate that. Let's bring those things in, and really beginning to foster that sharing and giving way, and thinking about how we together take care of one another in a community. And that is what the church has been and can continue to be. As Ericka said, your prayers are critical, and pray for the individuals you see as you're driving along. I don't believe any of those things return void. And for the workers, pray for the workers. Also in your churches and in your congregations are people who are working in each of our organizations.
Yes.
There are people there who are laboring in this, and they carry the weight of the loss of human life on a regular basis, because people are dying on the streets of London. They are giving selflessly with very little pay. And, if we as the church could see those people and hold them up in prayer and recognize the ministry that they are doing on a week by week basis, I think that would also be so encouraging. Those are the ways I see the church stepping up. And I'm ever so grateful for the ways that CCNL and the churches in London have continuously been used by God to provide for our organizations and for the services that we do. Thank you so much.
And you know what? As a local church pastor, I just want to encourage church leaders and Christian leaders in our city. Let's have the mind of Christ on this. And it's a hot topic right now. Last evening, I was in a social setting, and the topic of homelessness came up. And this was among Christians. And I was a bit miffed, actually, by some of the attitudes of people. And it just gave me an opportunity to encourage people. Hey, let's have the mind of Christ. Like Jesus has taught us a lot about how we are to treat one another, and especially those in need in our city. So church, let's lead the way on this. And we can do that by supporting these wonderful organizations. Thank you, folks, for giving of your time. And I just trust that this short video will be a blessing and encouragement to everybody who watches. So God bless you in all that you're doing. And all I can say is keep on going.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.